Episode 1, the original intent of the Seashore, specifically this idea that ranching was meant to continue within the Seashore forever, even though that was not mentioned in the legislation. So how is it that so many people believe this to be true? Well, it certainly doesn't help that today's Park Service staff spread these lies. What you have instead is a history of lobbying and attempts to amend and change and alter the wording so that it sounds like ranching was an integral part of what the Seashore was meant to be. There's a lot of evidence and a lot of documents to go through, considering that there have been multiple amendments. So let's go back to the beginning. Do many of you know that there was a survey done by the United States government in order to look at this land and find out if it was a suitable proposition for a national park, a national seashore? And this began all the way back in the 30s. You can read the complete history in a document called An Administrative History of Point Reyes National Seashore, which can be found on the Point Reyes National Seashore website and on my site, whichever you find more convenient to go and read at. I would like to read to you some quotes from that document. Now, I'm going to look off screen for these because I am actually reading from the administrative history. I want to give you a little background. They had to conduct a survey that proved that the proposition of buying this land and creating a park was a good idea. So this quote is in reference to that. It says, "The study narrative gave little attention to the ranches, noting only that the private holdings of the larger ranches prevented the public from gaining any conception of the physical beauty of the region." Prevented the public from gaining any conception of the physical beauty of the region. That's saying that the ranches prevented full enjoyment of the potential of the seashore. That's literally saying that the ranches were an obstacle between actually enjoying the seashore for its true potential. Quote, remember, I'm reading quotes. "The report made no recommendations for preserving the agricultural tradition or the active dairy operations on the peninsula." No recommendations. Continuing, quote, "The ranches and dairies were not elements that the National Park Service, most seashore supporters, and legislators initially sought to protect within the scope of the National Seashore premise." Quote, "They did not offer protection of dairy and cattle ranches as an objective in establishing the National Seashore. Dairy ranches raised an outcry and pledged to fight the Seashore's establishment. In July 1958, 35 ranchers formed the West Marin Property Owners Association. This coalition made it their objective to stop the creation of the park." Sounds a little different from this idea that they worked hand in hand, right? That they were fully behind this park from the beginning. Just a little different from that lie. This delegation of ranchers came to the Marin Board of Supervisors and told them to vote against the park, and the Board of Supervisors took the quick unplanned vote against the seashore after hearing from this delegation of ranchers without even hearing the Point Reyes National Seashore's proposal. That tells you how powerful and influential the ranchers were even back then. Here's a favorite quote of mine from that document. "One need only replace the cows with elk, and the scene would be that which met the eyes of the adventurers of the 16th century. Dunshee and likely Worth, as well, anticipated that the ranches would eventually go away once that process was completed." That sounds like the opposite of planning on ranches staying forever. Another quote, "National Park Service officials might encounter difficulties trying to convince ranch owners to sell their property, but concluded that they would overcome any objections when the various parties paused to think of the great need of this breathing spot for generations hence." Boy, did they get that one wrong. Greed and selfishness instead of considering the greater good of the future. Greed and selfishness by people who were paid for their land and have since then done everything they can, spending that money to stay. Screw the future. Screw the greater good. Screw wildlife. Screw future generations. Our ranching is here to stay, and we're going to spend all the money, including some of Marin County's money, making that happen.